Hey, it's Rachel Gregg and welcome to another one of my December daily videos where I'm sharing my process of documenting my December. In the two previous videos I share how I set up this journal. I'm using a Dylusions Dyalog insert book and I created some little curved pages there so I could have 31 double pages for December. So if you haven't seen that and you want to know how I've set that up, then I'll put a little link up right there on the right hand side of the screen so you can see that, or just head back to my YouTube channel to watch that. And so that's how I've prepped it, and now what I'm doing is going ahead and sharing with you day 1 through to day 6 of my December journal. So I've started off with creating some dates. What I'm doing now is creating a date for the first day of December, and it is a Wednesday. So I'm using the Wednesday out of the Everyday Life stamp set from Darkroom Door, and then now using the little one out of the Diary Dates stamp set. So the Diary Dates has also got Wednesday and all the days of the week in that stamp set as well, but I wanted the different type of Wednesday, which was in the Everyday Life. I really like how this looks, and just trimming out this label using a pair of scissors. Now the Lots of Labels stamp set has lots of different labels, just like the name suggests, and the Wednesday and a lot of the days of the week actually fits a lot of those labels. So I'm just using that because I love the look of little red labels, and I've stamped that using the Vermillion Archival ink. And you can see that little no peeking there in the background. That's also stamped with one of those labels and one of the stamps from the Dear Santa stamp set. Now the little Santa you can see is from the Yuletide Volume 2 stamp set, from that little stash of pencil case where I had it full of pre-stamped pieces. And now what I'm moving on to now is day 2, which didn't have anything on it other than a little bit of dark green paint up the top, left over from when I was decorating page 1. And I've just added some book page down on the right hand side and just some Mushy Peas Dylusions paint. But now what I'm doing is stamping a Santa out of the Merry Mail stamp set onto a tag. And this tag was also in my little pencil case of Christmas goodies. And it was already stamped with cheer, and it was stamped and embossed using green Tinsel embossing powder. So it's got that real festive look to it, which is nice. And this, the star, which I'm now sticking down with some Glossy Accents, it is from the Brushed Christmas Volume 1 stamp set. And I'll put the links down below in the description for all these stamp sets if you want to check them out further. Now, I'm using Glossy Accents because it's a really strong adhesive, especially for these cardstock pieces. So it's really good for tags and really good for other stamped cardstock. You can also use multi-medium or collage medium or ultra thick gel medium. That's also really good for cardstock as well. But Glossy Accents, I had it on my table. It's also a great adhesive, so I'm using that to stick those down, and I know once those are stuck they're not going nowhere. So and what I'm doing now is stamping some more little labels. So I'll be using these smaller label for some of the smaller days from this Diary Date stamp set. And while I had the label stamp out, I just stamped a few of them because I know that I'll be using them throughout the book, so it's always nice to have a few done in advance. So you can see how that Thursday fits quite nicely, and again just trimming out with scissors. You could use a paper trimmer if you like, but because I'm just going straight up against that red, I'm not leaving any border or anything. It's quite easy to do it with scissors, as those labels have quite a thick border on them, so it doesn't really need to be cut perfectly. It's quite easy to do, so that's, you know, nice and quick. So I'm stamping the 2 out of the Big Numbers stamp set, and I just moved that stamp to the right hand side of that block so I can get it right in that little crease there where that the journal spine is. Sometimes if you leave stamps in the center of your stamping blocks, it's a bit difficult to get it over that little hump there in the center of your journal there. And now I'm just stamping out the pine leaf. This is from the Yuletide Volume 2 stamp set. Just with some Fern green. Now Archival ink does stamp really well over paint, so that's why it's really cool to stamp that onto these painted backgrounds. And I'm just sticking down that Thursday over the top of the 2. You might have noticed I had a little bit of extra ink when I stamped that too. It wasn't really much of a bother, but I actually quite like how that Thursday overlaps with it too. It just gives it something a little bit interesting rather than just having it side by side. And it's just a nice little trick if you have a little bit of extra stamping ink that you don't want seen. You can always cover it up with something. And what I'm doing now is I'm creating a title for this page. I'm using an idea from Ali Edwards. I've been following her December daily for this month, and she did a page that was called Right Now, and then she had some little prompts or some little words that she used for her journaling for the day. So I'm stamping right now using the Alphabet Medley stamp set from Darkroom Door. And it's a fun little stamp set, this one, because every letter is, a different style. So it's kind of like a ransom font. And it just makes it nice and interesting. And it means that you don't need to stamp neatly or in a nice line or anything like that. So here's my little prompt words. So loving, listening, and then I'll just add the other words over the journal page, and then I've got a little bit of space there to add some journaling in. So I'll write about, what I'm loving, what I'm listening to, what I'm remembering, what I'm watching. It's a nice little journal idea, and I was, really happy to grab that idea from Ali and then put it inside my journal here. And I'll put a link to Ali's page in the description box, so you can go and check out what she did with that in her journal as well. Now I'm moving on to day 3, and I'm using the little tip-in, the little curved tip-ins that I added inside some of the pages to use for my date for today. So I'm just writing out Friday 3rd of December, and I'm going along the lines of the curved edge of the page, so that just makes my writing a little bit more interesting than if I just did it straight. And what I do for this type of lettering is I just handwrite the word just straight up with my handwriting, and then I'll add some extra depth and shading for the words, so then it just gives it a bit more style, I guess. And it's really easy to do with this pen. I'm just using a pen here from Vicky Booten. It's an American Crafts pen that she's done with them, and it's a really nice deep red, which is perfect for Christmas journaling. And it's really opaque as well, so you can see how I'm going in here afterwards and adding that extra shading, and you can't tell what was done first, like the first outline of the letter, and then what's done now. So it's a really good pen to use for that. So now I've just done that lettering, and that's a really cool way, I think, to add the date to your little journal page. And what I'm doing now is stamping a border, and I've got the Bold Arrows Eclectic stamp from Darkroom Door and stamping it along that left-hand side using some different inks. Again, using Christmas inks. I'm kind of going along with the red and green theme at the moment, really Christmassy, and it's the Vermillion colour and the Fern green. So I'll do that red first, the Vermillion colour first, and then I'll stamp over the top with that Fern green. Now this is a really solid stamp, as you can see, but it's got lots of scratches through it, which just gives it a nice little grungy look as well. And I'm just using just a little sheet of paper there just to protect the other pages underneath, just while I stamp that red and that green. And I'm keeping this page fairly simple. There won't be any other embellishments on this page. I've just left that little centerpiece there so I can add my journaling. And you'll notice that this page has already got ink on it. This is one of those pages that I pre-prepped with Distress ink. So it's really nice to actually turn to a page where you go, oh, it's already done, with a little bit of color, and then you can just add to it when you're doing your journaling. And what I'm doing now is adding on some Tim Holtz tissue. This is some collage paper that he has done, which has got some really nice birds on it and some sheet music. And I'm just sticking that down here with some Dina Wakley gel medium. So tissue paper gets really, really fragile when it's wet with this gel medium, so it's just, you need to be quite careful with it. But it doesn't really matter if it does tear, because that just adds to the organic look to it, but it is also very easy just to stick it back down. So if anything does tear, you can still just stick that back down with the gel medium. So I'm just creating another date here for this day. This time it's Saturday, and just cutting it out with the scissors there because it's nice and quick. And I'll be stamping and adding that onto my page, and this will be day 4, so I'm grabbing the 4 out of that big numbers stamp set and just sticking with those colors that I did on the left hand side while the inks are still out, and it just makes it nice and cohesive. So I've got the Fern green Archival ink, which I will stamp up the top right hand corner. And I mean, I love doing these journals where I get to use all the different numbers and days and letters and things like that out of the stamp sets that we have, and mixing and matching them. I mean, you could just pick one stamp set, like the diary dates that you can see there on the right hand side, and it's got the months and the days and the numbers all in one stamp set. So you could just stick with one stamp set throughout the whole month if you wanted to. But for this journal, I'm going to mix it up a bit and use all different ones, and just to keep it interesting throughout the month. What I'm doing now is just adding some, sponging some ink just around those edges, just to give it a nice little border and just add some shading around all of those pages. And I'll be doing it on both the left and right hand sides, just to make the flow work really nicely between page 3 and page 4. And it's just really easy to do. I'm just using the Peeled Paint Distress ink, just with an ink blending tool, which has got the foam. And out of my little stash of Christmas goodies in my pencil case, I found this tag, which you can just see there. It's just been coloured with some distress inks. It was just in my little stash there. So I'm just stamping it with a postmark from the Merry Mail stamp set. And I'm going to stick that on the little tip-in curved page, just as an extra little inclusion where it'll make that page easier to turn. So you can grab the tag to turn the page, and to stick it down I'm using Glossy Accents because I want to make sure that it won't fall off. So I want it really stuck down well, especially because it will be getting a little bit of handling if it's going to be used for that purpose. And just sponging off or wiping off any excess there. Now you can see how I've got that nice little tag flap on my tip-in. So now what I'm doing is just adding an edge or an outline to my lettering. I just wanted to add a little dark outline just to finish off that lettering, which is a nice little way to do that. And so here's my finished page. You can see how I've filled it with journaling, and I used more numbers from an alphabet medley stamp set, and just adding in a couple of little snowflakes from that Merry Mail. And what I'm doing now is just decorating the right hand side of that tip-in curved page. I don't want to do the date, or I didn't do the date on that side of the tip-in page. So now I just want to decorate it with some stamps from that Merry Mail stamp set, and just to finish off that page. And then all I'll do on that right hand side, in where it's just got all that inking, and that's where I'll do my journaling. And these tiny little stamps are perfect for adding in those little spaces that you'll find when you're filling in your journal. They're just good little fillers. And I'm just using the same inks, just the Vermillion and the Fern green, just to keep this page nice and festive. So now I'm working on page 5 and page 6. And these pages here, they haven't been prepped in any way. So they've just blank with no ink or anything like that. So it allows me now to just use, a background or create a background in any way that I feel like on this particular day. So this is why it's kind of good to have some that are prepped and then some that aren't, because it just means you can come up with, or, do whatever you feel like on the day. And this particular time I felt like doing a painted background. So I've got some paints out. I'm using olive Dina Wakley and the white Dina Wakley, and a little bit of penny Dina Wakley ink, which gives a nice little goldy sort of metallic look. And then also sage from Kaisercraft. And so this time I'm using a brayer rather than using the little craft squeegee that I did for the other pages. And the brayer just gives you a different look to it as well, and also a different texture. I've done that one, and now I'm moving on to the day 6 page, and this time here I'm using distress ink. So I've just picked out some colours that kind of go with the paints, but they're just a little bit lighter than the other paints, so it'll be a little bit different, but still within that same colour family. And now what I want to do is start decorating this left page. And to make it a little bit more Christmassy, I've got out some ruby paint from Dina Wakley and just tapping it onto an abstract stamp. So instead of using ink, I wanted to damp with the paint. And the best way to put the paint onto the stamp is by using an ink blending tool. So all I did was put the paint on the palette and then grabbed an ink blending tool and just smooshed it into that foam and then tapped that foam onto the stamp. And the reason that's so good or easy to do is it just gives a really nice even layer of that paint onto the stamp. It means you won't get a lot of paint on there, and it just makes it easy to stamp with. You just have to make sure that you do clean your stamp straight away, because paint is permanent, so it will stick to that stamp if you let it dry. So it's best to clean it straight away. So have a stamp cleaner or some baby wipes there to clean off your stamps with. And what I'm doing now is I've stuck down a photo on this page. I'll be journaling about our Christmas tree and how we've set that up now, and then just using some stamps from the Everyday Life stamp set. I saw that little space down underneath the photo was a perfect size for that Life is Good stamp, so I stamped that, and then now I'm using the tiny little flowery stamp from that just to fill in those spaces. So this is one way I really love to use those tiny stamps. They're really good, just little space fillers, especially for journals, and it just adds a nice little decorative element to your pages. And now I just want to stick down some book pages, just add a little bit of collage to these pages. And I'll stick that down with just a bit of gel medium. And the number 5 that I stamped up there, that is from the Sketched Alphabet stamp set. And it's a fun little stamp set because you can either colour in those numbers or you can just leave them as is, like I've done on this one here. But if you wanted to really highlight that number, you could just colour it in red or green or white or any colour that you like. So now I'm journaling on the curved page here that I've got, and you'll see that I've stamped that border as well using that same abstract stamp, and then I added some journaling over the top, just using a permanent pen. So now what you'll see is me doing a bit of a mistake here, and I've stamped number 7, which it should have been number 6. So it means now I need to rectify that situation, and the best way to do that is just to cover it up using some book page. So I've got some sheet music out, and I'll be just collaging that over the top. So then you won't see that number 7, and then I can go ahead and stamp the correct date, which will be number 6. So obviously I was just getting ahead of myself and thinking about the next day rather than thinking about what day I was doing this. And so I'm just sticking down some sheet music using some gel medium and just sticking down a couple of pieces, so then it becomes a little bit more cohesive throughout the page. And this these little inked pieces of book page, these are just leftovers from another project that I was doing using the same kind of colours that I'll be using on the page. And this photo here, this shows our advent calendar, and this was created using little calico bags that I picked up from Kmart and just stamped it with the numbers, using the big numbers that you can see that I'm using on this page, the big numbers stamp set from Darkroom Door. So I've used that stamp set to stamp onto those little calico bags using the Vermillion Archival ink, and because Archival ink works really well on fabric as well, so that was a perfect way to create my own little advent calendar. So that's hanging up in our house now, and I just wanted to put that inside our little journal for this year. And now I'm stamping the correct date, or the correct number, which is number 6, and that's out of that big numbers stamp set as well. And I actually like how I've done the date on this page because of all that, the collage with the sheet music and the extra inked book page and the little Monday date, which is inside a label. So I'm kind of really happy about how I've fixed up that mistake, and I think it looks a lot better anyway. So the little Happy Christmas, I've stamped that to fill some space, and you can see now how I've done that journaling. And here's a little look through of my completed 6 pages so far with all the journaling complete. and the stamping, and it just gives you some ideas on how you can start your December daily journal as well. And I look forward to sharing more with you as I complete my journal. Thanks so much for watching.